start the fight, breaking down the walls in the dead of night. I don't come for peace, I come for the storm. Fanboys melt quick when the truth gets warm. Saw content's high, I'm collecting those tears. Just got started, but I'm cutting through fears. I'm not here for brand deals, I'm not for sale. I expose your lies, rip off the veil.
Harmon, I swear, your hatred for non-Nintendo knows no bounds. I'm surprised Nintendo even allows you to have access to the internet. Well, let's get into this reaction.
I don't drink alcohol. I drink Arizona green tea, and I am gonna crack open a bottle of this.
I mean, maybe you need to crack open a beer every once in a while. Maybe you'll be a little bit more pleasant to deal with.
In celebration of the death of Rareware, the death of Microsoft.
Number one, Harmon, it's not the death of either of them. Number two, you should not be celebrating over 9,000 people losing their damn jobs. This is not a time for celebration. Will you stop trying to continue this console war BS?
The death of Xbox. How unbelievable.
Harmon, they literally own Call of Duty. You know how much money that they make on Call of Duty alone? Xbox is not going anywhere.
Is it that we've spent the past 25 years being told that Rareware is past their prime and they're not good anymore and they can't put out good games, and yet...
I think that's only you saying that. The thing is, they got a lot of great IPs under their umbrella, but Microsoft wouldn't let them sit there and do anything with them.
People still don't want to acknowledge why. You know, they don't want to admit that Nintendo was directly involved in all of Rareware's hits in the 90s.
No, I honestly think it was the other way around. I think Rareware was involved with Nintendo's success in the 90s, not really Nintendo having success for them. I think that's how it goes.
They do not want to admit that the N64 was an amazing platform. They don't want to admit that Rareware made a mistake.
Yes, the N64 was an amazing platform, had a lot of great games, but guess what? The PS1 was better. The sales numbers speak for themselves. Sony still has the greatest JRPG of all time, which is Legend of Dragoon. Sony, you better remake this game already.
Selling themselves to Microsoft. This is something that people who are casual observers of the situation don't understand, is that Rareware sold their half of the company.
Yes, and if I remember correctly, they sold 51%, so it was more than half, and then at a later date, Nintendo sold the rest of it.
Well, more like 51%, not quite a half. 51% of their company to Microsoft, you know, and Nintendo sold their shares afterward. You know, like you don't.
Yes, we understand, Harmon, how it works. I just explained it to him. Can you get on with it already? I ain't got all damn night.
See people acknowledge, you know, the reality of the situation is that everything bad that's happened to Rareware over the past 25 years, you know, all the terrible 4Kids television series, you know, the failure of all their new IPs, you know.
A lot of that was probably Microsoft on that one. Yes, they didn't make some amazing games when they went to Microsoft. Only if Microsoft would have let them make another Banjo-Kazooie game, I think it would have done well when they first acquired them. Nowadays, not so much. I would love another Banjo-Kazooie, but from what I've been told, it's not like that character really sold well for Super Smash Brothers.
Their inability to create like new titles on Xbox, you know, all the canceled projects, the failed revivals, you know, like Killer Instinct, which a lot of people still refuse to admit is a failure, by the way.
Harmon, it wasn't a failure. You think anything that doesn't go on Nintendo becomes a failure.
And, you know, where we're at now, you know, Connect Sports and the cancellation of Everwild and Joe Dark, you know, featuring a masculine
That wasn't their fault. That was Microsoft's fault. From what we've heard from the rumors that Everwild's game was actually being close to being ready and they chose to cancel the damn thing.
Rareware has just been like in free fall for like a very, 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 very long time. And yet like people really didn't want to admit it because for the longest time, you know, back in the 2000s, the narrative was that Nintendo failed.
Because they did. Whether you like it or not, Nintendo did fail during the N64 and the GameCube. Yes, they are considered successes, but if you want to compare them to the other ones, they didn't really sell a whole lot. Even though the N64 I did love, the GameCube I did love, the Wii, nah, wasn't my thing. Sorry. You guys can enjoy it all you want to. I'm not denying it wasn't a good system, it just wasn't for me.
Because they allowed Rareware to go. That was like the big prevailing narrative, in the 2000s, and it's become apparent over time.
Well, Harmon, maybe if they would have kept Rareware, maybe they would have sat there and actually been able to produce some games that they're known for, the good ones. Maybe they would have made a better Killer Instinct. Maybe they would have made the next one. Maybe they would have made a sequel to Banjo and Kazooie. Maybe they could have kept on working with the Donkey Kong games.
That Nintendo absolutely did the right thing in kicking Rareware to the curb, because they were causing problems. They were causing delays. They were making ludicrously expensive products.
I don't know into the whole reason why that they chose to sell it to Microsoft, but my guess is maybe they didn't like that their competitor owned more of the company than what they did and thought it was just better to give that up to them. Maybe that's what my guess is. I could be wrong.
Forcing them to package in the expansion pack in with every copy of Donkey Kong 64 is a really, really good example.
Yeah, I don't think that was their fault. You do understand that game like that, because they weren't the only ones. I'm pretty certain there was one of the Zelda games that you had to use it for also. But in order to play that Donkey Kong 64, it was too big for the standard one. You had to use something like that to play it.
The prevailing narrative that Rareware carried the N64 is completely and utterly false.
Nah, more like they carried the Super Nintendo. Well, not really carried them, but just remember, Harmon, we know you love Donkey Kong. The only reason why the Donkey Kong is as big as it is because of Rare. You need to accept that.
Of course, they put out a lot of classic games, a lot of games that are still played and enjoyed to this day. But, the N64 was a fantastic console that, far surpassed the PS1 in general.
Oh yeah, you are so correct, Harmon. Really surpassed it. Oh yeah, N64 got 33 million units sold. The PS1 had 103 million units. Oh yeah, totally surpassed it. You are completely correct. Your logic makes sense, even though the facts say otherwise.
Right, and that continued into the GameCube era, even without them. This idea that Nintendo was failing, after the Rareware era when
Oh yeah, you are so correct, Harmon. Yep, the GameCube did so great, a measly 21 million units, when the N64 did 32 million units, while they had Rare under their umbrella. You are so correct. Oh, and what did the competitor, the PS2, sell? Oh, that's right, 160 million units, the biggest selling console of all time.
Completely laughable. Okay, I've talked about this before, but I'm seeing people like Andre Seegers try and come out and say well, actually Nintendo has lost every console generation other than the Switch, and I'm just
I wouldn't say every console generation. They did sit here and lose in the N64, the GameCube, and the Wii U. Oh boy, did they get their asses whooped for the Wii U. But all the other ones, I believe that they won. If I'm correct, I believe the NES beat the rest of them, and the Super Nintendo beat out the Genesis, if I'm correct.
They've been profitable every year since 1981, other than 2013 or 2014. I don't remember what it is. And that was just because of a new console launch.
Harmon, that is completely irrelevant if they sat there and been profitable. The only reason why they were profitable during that time was because of the handheld. You do understand that, right? Well, they might have been a little bit profitable with the N64, but let's not kid ourselves. The majority of the money that they were making wasn't from the N64 and the GameCube. If we were being honest, it was because of the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance. At least I'm pretty certain. I could be wrong, but I'm almost dead set on that one.
Generally speaking, Nintendo is an extremely successful company. And yet there's this prevailing narrative that actually PlayStation sells more. The PS2 is the best-selling console ever. Hey, genius. You know how much money they lost on the PS3? The PS3 by itself wiped out all the profits of the PS1 and the PS2. That is...
You do realize that the PS3 still sold pretty damn well, right? You do understand that. Yeah, they might have not have really made their money back, or I think they might have made a little bit of money back. Towards the end, I think they were a little bit profitable, but guess what? The PS2 still whooped Nintendo's asses. You just need to accept that.
just like the reality that people don't want to admit is that Nintendo actually makes money on their shit, and like PlayStation doesn't.
Well, Harmon, I was actually incorrect. The PS3, yes, it was a loss technically, but they were profitable for the PS1, the PS2, the PS4, and the PS5, the most profitable they've ever been. And guess what? So there was only one system where they were not profitable. Pretty positive that Nintendo was not profitable during the Wii U. I could be wrong, but I don't think that they actually were.
They don't want to talk about profits. They want to talk about things that don't actually matter, like fake sales numbers and like.
Do you have any proof of that, Harmon? I understand that you continue to cope and seethe over the fact that the PS2 is still the greatest selling console of all time, but it's okay. We will build you a closet for you to go cry in if you would like.
Trying to gaslight you into thinking that kids don't like play Mario anymore. It's their entire industry has always been built around this idea of like pretending as if Nintendo is like perpetually on like the verge of bankruptcy.
I have never heard Sony ever sit there and say that, but I'm pretty certain that Sony says that Nintendo and Mario are for children, so I think you might have gotten that twisted.
And the reality is like so far in the other direction that like I think people would be shocked by it. The fact that just how well run of a company Nintendo actually is. They have to be the most well run entertainment company in the world right now.
Oh, congratulations, Harmon. They might be well ran, but guess what? They're ripping you guys off more than any other company is. And now it's time to read off the members of the channel. We got Andy Ricks, Jay Wesby65, Brian Payne, Oh No Is Justin, Watari, Shade Milkman, MadFox94, Maximilian Pegasus 88, and Koros Objective. Thank you so much for being a part of the crew. And if you truly enjoy this content, why don't you think about becoming a member? It's only $1 a month. You get special kind of badges, you get special kind of emotes, and at the end of all my videos, I will sit here and shout out all my members until it becomes too long, and then it'll be turned into a credit roll. So that's going to be it for my reaction. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with me or not. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay vigilant.
You can cry in the comments, but you won't survive. Like and subscribe if you feel that vibe. We're hot and salty.